לדבר הכל באנגלית גם. לא? יש לכם בעיה עם אנגלית? טוב, אז אני אנסה לדבר על הדברים באנגלית. כן, אני אנסה לדבר על הדברים באנגלית. I will try to explain everything in English. Maybe it will be easier for me. Sorry. Yes, maybe it will be easier even.
No, but I'm the minority here, of course. It's better to be in Hebrew and then I can just...
I think that nobody has a difficulty with English here.
No, it's fine.
Thank you.
ואת יכולה לתרגם לעברית פשוט. And talk and translate to Hebrew. If we ever stumbled into a Tibetan Buddhist temple, we saw a huge and almost blazing paraphernalia of golden images, which some of them are benign, and others might look wrathful, threatening, a kind of monstrous even. And then, when we look at it, if we born in these Jewish, Christian, Muslim traditions, and even if we are secular, we still have this conditioning of looking at all these images and all this Buddhism as a kind of idol worshipping, paganism, kind of weird hybrid between low-level Hinduism and high-level Buddhism, or all kinds of other forms of syncretic, weird Asian religion, as you're probably most familiar, at least with their outlook, than we here in Israel. And then we project on what we see, we project our own understandings, and we think that this is more or less it is kind of low-level paganic idol-worshipping Buddhism. So this is what we think it is. Now, we have to understand that in cultures that are not monotheistic oriented, people have the freedom to express their religious feelings in any way they like. They can express it in paintings, they can express their feelings in sculpture, in music, dances, colors, smells, sounds, everything they want. And in Buddhism and Hinduism, actually depicting the gods or depicting the Buddhas, giving them shape, this is actually meritorious act. Why? Because we can contact immediately with what we conceive as sublime and supreme wisdom and compassion. We don't have to think that wisdom and compassion must be completely abstract. They have also manifestation in our normal physical world. So it has its own abstract aspect, but it has also its visual or physical aspect, and there is no contradiction between the two. And according to the Asian understanding of religion, now I'm talking in general Buddhism and Hinduism, there is no a hierarchy of the abstract upon what we see. there are only two sides of the same absolute. Simple as that. They don't have this distance. Now, we quite often hear the word Tantra, which is associated with these Tibetan or Himalayan Buddhist temples. And we hear a lot of things about outrageous sexual orgies, eating all kind of strange and repulsive substances. We see people who are worshipping monstrous gods or deities. And we say to ourselves that this is very beautiful, this is exotic, this is Asia, which is very beautiful and very strange. But it has nothing really to do with real practice of wisdom and compassion.
Or freedom.
Or freedom. So there is this word Tantra, which we inject into it all kinds of things, and we think the Tantra can be actually everything that it wanted to be. But this is not exactly so. Now I will restrict my talk about Tantric Buddhism, which is the subject of our talk this evening, because trying to encompass the whole subject within the other Asian religions, such as what we call Hinduism or Jainism, it will be overflowing.
Or early Buddhism, or even early Buddhism, in which...
Oh, okay.
Because
okay,
he said not to...
Wait. Sorry, I lost my thread of thought. Excuse me for a few seconds. Okay, Tantra. Yes. So we think that Tantra is a kind of a school of thought which is different in many ways from other schools of thought. Like there is, let's say, Mahayana Buddhism and Theravada Buddhism, and then we have Tantric Buddhism, which is kind of a distinguished school of itself. But actually, if we dig a little bit deeper, we understand that what we call Tantra, it's actually a class of lessons or class of teachings. For example, when we refer to the Buddha discourses, so we call them sutra. In Tantric Buddhism, in difference from sutra, we're talking about a class of lessons and scriptures that we call them Tantra. So Tantra is not necessarily a school, but it is a class of teachings. In Tibetan Buddhism, we have other words for other names for this school. We call it Vajrayana, which means the thunderbolt vehicle or the diamond vehicle. Or we call it Mantrayana, which means the protecting words school. And sometimes we call it also Tantrayana. Yes, this is also true. Now, what distinguishes the Tantras from the Sutras? What distinguishes is the method of practice, is the conceptual framework of practice, but in the same time, the whole philosophy and metaphysics of Tantric Buddhism is already existing within the Mahayana schools of Buddhism and also within the Theravadin schools of Buddhism. So we can regard Tantric Buddhism as kind of a later development, methodically, but ideally, it's actually all the same. It's only different methods of work. Now, to begin to understand Tantra, we have to know a little bit about Mahayanic concepts of the Buddha Dharma, which are, in a way, they're a little bit different from the older schools of Buddhism. And we have to understand also that Tantra or Vajrayana or Mantrayana is actually an inner development within the Mahayanic schools. The Tantric practitioners, they view their own school or their own schools as part and parcel of the Mahayanic Buddhism. Now, the basic idea in Mahayana Buddhism is that mind, which is actually the core of the Buddha's teachings, because we are working with the mind, on the mind. We're trying to transform, transmute, and transcend the mind from a state of mind which perceives the world as a world of suffering, of impermanence, to a world of freedom and happiness. So this is actually what we do in Buddhism. And all practices of Buddhism are actually aiming for that goal. Everything that we see, ceremonies, chantings, visualizations, meditations, everything is aiming to transform, transmute, and transcend the mind. From lower state of mind to higher state of mind. From a state of mind where our negative emotions and our distorted perceptions controlling us, to a state of mind which is free of all negative elements, either emotional or cognitive. Okay? So, basic understanding of Mahayana Buddhism of the mind is that mind has...
is it a state of mind which is free from... Is it a state of mind or something beyond the state of mind?
Okay, this is a good question, which actually opens a whole new set of lessons. So I don't know if I can address this question now, maybe a little bit later if we have some time. And this is a good question because it pertains to one school of Mahayana which is known as mind-only school, which actually this is its claim. The Yogacara or Vijnanavada or Chitramatra, they are actually claiming that there is nothing but the mind itself. Yes, so your question is actually in its right place. But we'll touch this question maybe not directly when I try to explain how it expresses itself in the tantric practices. Anyway, in the Mahayana understanding of mind, the mind has two basic aspects. One of them is the empty aspect of the mind, the void aspect of the mind, and the other one is the cognitive aspect of mind, or in more traditional language, the luminous aspect of mind. Now, if we're talking about the empty aspect of mind, why we are looking at the mind as empty? We have to understand what emptiness means. The Buddha defines emptiness as being empty of a independent self and being empty of unchanging and eternal self. So it means that every phenomena does not have an everlasting and unchanging essence. Everything is in a constant flux. Everything is a constant change. Also our mind. We cannot treat our mind as a substance which is not changing. And if we're trying to investigate mind, we see that we cannot really pinpoint where it is or how it looks like. It does not have shape, it does not have color. We can feel a little bit of its activity in our head, sometimes we can feel it in our heart. We can actually say that mind pervades the whole body, because as long as we feel something in the knee, so there is some mind in the knee too. We can also say that mind is outside of us. For instance, if I'm imagining myself from the outside, so where is exactly my mind? Inside my body or outside my body? Or maybe in two positions in the same time? Or else, how far my mind is extending? For example, I look at this lamp, so it might be that my mind are actually extending up to this distance. So all this makes our mind empty, because we cannot really pinpoint how it looks, where it exactly is, if it is unchanging or changing, and so on. So this is, hopefully I'm not mistaken, this is the understanding of mind as empty. But from the other hand, we cannot say that mind is non-existent, because we still can think, we can still perceive, we can still see and hear and sense on the body. Yes? Someone is still speaking here, so we cannot say that mind is non-existent. So all this is considered to be the cognitive or the luminous aspect of the mind. Luminous not in the sense that it's shining like a lamp, but luminous in the sense of shedding light on something. So the very fact that I can see, this is the luminous aspect of mind. It's like shedding a light on something in order to perceive it. So both of them are coexistent. Now, when we're working on our mind, the Buddhist sages came to the understanding that we cannot free our mind if we are not working on it in all its aspects. So, to make things a little bit simpler, when we're talking about the luminous aspect of mind, we are talking also partially about what we can call a discursive thinking, what we call thoughts, reasoning, imagination, images, conception, understandings, and so on. This is the discursive aspect of our mind, which is going on and on and on without an end. We all the time talking to ourselves. All the time we're imagining things. We daydreaming. We daydream all the time. Now, we like to think that we are very realistic creatures, but in reality, most of our time we spend in imaginations. We're imagining all kinds of things and we never really perceive anything as is. We travel by train, by car, we're thinking about something else. We have an appointment with a girl, we're imagining how how we would like her to be. We have an interview with a new job, so we're imagining how our conversation will be with this person, and so on and on and on. And when we look inside our mind, we see that, first of all, a great part of our mental process is actually random, like we cannot control anything actually. And then we can see also that there is a mixture between what we can call good and benefiting elements and negative and destructive elements. So it's like a big mixture. Now, in Tantra or Vajrayana, what we do, we're giving a great emphasis on this process of discursive thought. And instead of letting it flow randomly, we try to give it direction. And instead of letting it flow with all kinds of destructive elements within it, we're trying to actually infiltrate into it positive thinking and positive images. Now, within the discursive thinking, we have to understand that the way that our mind works is a very complex and interactive connection between images, words, sounds, smells, tactile sensations, and so on. Now, if I practice this meditation of remembering or being aware of the Buddha, I'm actually starting to fill my discursive thinking with positive images, with good intentions, with positive feelings and thoughts. And as much as I do it more and more and more, I'm actually filling my inner world with images of enlightenment, of wisdom, of compassion. And slowly, slowly, I diminish the place of the destructive elements within myself. So, the uniquity of the tantric method is giving a great emphasis to the discursive thinking and try to transform it by images, concepts, and understandings of enlightenment, of awakening, of great wisdom, of great compassion, of great altruism, and so on. This is actually what we do. This is why in Tantric Buddhism there is a great emphasis on imagination, on imaging. רואים הדמיה? הדמיה זה לא imagining בדיוק, הדמיה זה...
visualization.
לא, זה לא... Okay, now it's not exactly visualization. Why? Because visualization pertains to the eye, but we are talking about all-round imagination, which also includes sound and smell and סליחה? Okay. Yes, יכול להיות, כן. So it's actually all-round imagination, because we also maybe simulation is a better word. We are simulating something in all its aspects, and all our senses, or most of our senses, are participating in this simulation. This is the idea of dealing with the discursive aspect of our mind. And there is a little bit of it in other traditions of Buddhism, but this is actually what is unique in Tantric Buddhism. Now, when I say that this is unique in Tantric Buddhism, I don't mean to say that it is over or better than any other method. Every Buddhist school and every method has its own uniqueness. For instance, to my understanding, Torma can correct me, but for my understanding, Theravada, its specialty is to work with things as is. I have body, I'm already to the body.
There is a body,
yes.
not I have a body.
לא, אנחנו נתחיל מהמקום הבור.
Okay.
We begin from our ignorant place. We have a body. Okay, we have a body. This is the most simple understanding. There is a body. This is the correct way to observe it. But we have a body. There is still we, at least on a certain level, and this I, whether it is substantial or not, this I connects itself to a certain physical phenomena which it designates as body. So, in the older schools of Buddhism, the speciality is to work with things as is: body, emotions, feelings, thoughts, processes, and so on. Yes? Sankharas and so on. Now, if we're talking about the speciality of Chan Buddhism or Zen Buddhism, we're talking about its extreme directness. Means In Chan Buddhism, they say we don't want to investigate each and every phenomena. We want to cut through all of them. Where? Straight to the mind, like an arrow. So this is the speciality of Chan. Chan Buddhism or Zen. The speciality of Tantra is again different. Tantric sages say we work with everything and we do not exclude anything from our way of practice. So we make a full-fledged practice of imagination, a full-fledged practice of bodily movements, sounds, chantings, theater, paintings, sculpture, you just name it. Everything exists in Tantra. Really, everything, everything, everything. So, the statues are not only for beauty, they are also reminders. What are they reminding of? They're reminding us the enlightened or awakened qualities of the Buddha. Whether in their wrathful form or whether in their peaceful form. Because we have both. When we look at our human experience, we see that not every time that we scare somebody, we actually bad people. We simply want to stop him or to stop her of doing a foolish thing. So this is why we sometimes like this, looking like this. Yes? So this is why we see all these amazing statues with fangs and bulbous eyes and so on and so on. So, in the Tantric school of Buddhism, there is a very fine understanding of the interconnectivity and the interactivity between all these elements of words, of images, of sounds, of ideas, of concepts, and it's all interwoven together to a one great net of meditation. This is the uniqueness of Tantric Buddhism. Now, another thing is that according to the Tantric sages, their own definition, the way that they distinguish Tantra from Sutra, they say the Tantra is the path of the result and the Sutra is the path of the cause. Now, what does it mean? Let's say that I want to have a training in business, like it's very common in our modern world to have business coaches, yes? So there is two possibilities. One possibility is that the coach is coming to me and telling me, okay, Shlomo, first of all, you have to know that you have all the qualities and attributes to achieve your goals. Nothing that I'm telling you is missing. You have it in you as a potential. Now, instead of looking on your way from the place that you're standing now, look on your way as if you already achieved what you wanted. Look at yourself now as the businessman that you want to be. And now you look back to the way that you had to do in order to get to the place that you are now. Or the other attitude is the attitude of the cause. Okay, now I'm Shlomo, I don't understand much about business, I have to learn this and this and this and this and this. And from this point, which is not very skillful and not very trained, I will achieve my goals somewhere in the future. So, in Tantric Buddhism, this is exactly what they do. They do it from the point of view of the result. They say, now you are a Buddha. You imagine yourself now as a Buddha. And it's not that you are imagining something which is unreal. Because if you have a mind, you have the potential to become a Buddha. Potentially you are a Buddha because mind is Buddha. This is the Buddhist understanding. Mind is already Buddha. So, you are not imagining something which is unreal. You're just imagining yourself as if you already achieved your goal. So this is called the path of the result, in difference from the path of the cause, which is the sutra. So within the Tantric Buddhism, they make the distinguishing between Sutrayana and Tantrayana. So Tantrayana is the path of the result. Sutrayana is the path of the cause. Now, if we are cultivating the path of the result, logically, we will reach our goal faster. Why? Because we are already looking at our way and we looking at our practice already from the point of view of the result. So, this is again another aspect of the uniquity of Tantric Buddhism. Now, some people might question the authenticity of Tantra historically, textually, and so on and on. And I think that the answer to that question is not lying on the factual events, but the authenticity of Tantra is manifesting itself in its philosophy, metaphysics, and goal. In Tantric Buddhism, Buddha defined in exactly the same terms as in the older schools of Buddhism. And all Tantric practices aiming to the same place, which means eradicating all our emotional and cognitive elements and achieving complete and perfect freedom and omniscience. So, if we look at the goal, the Tantric path and the Tantric goal, in essence, not different from any other school of Buddhism. Whether it is later historical development, whether we can say maybe these forms of Buddhism are syncretic with the original religion of Tibet, which is Bon, or else Hinduism. I think that if you really dig the Tantric way, we see that it's actually completely Buddhist. It's Buddhist by its path, goal, and aims and practices. And when we practice ourselves the methods, we can see how they can lead to reducing our emotional stress, reducing our cognitive obscurations, and bringing us more and more peace, calmness, freedom, and understanding and compassion. So we have to look at things not only by the העובדות היבשות, the dry facts. We have to see things also by the way of its practices, philosophy, and aims, and the way that it's manifesting itself in our practical practice. Now, another thing is that when we look in the Tibetan Buddhist temples, or better to say Himalayan Buddhist temples, because also other nations in the Himalayas, they're actually practicing the same kind of Buddhism, so we cannot say that it's only Tibetan. So we can see these long ceremonies. And then we remember that the Buddha said that actually ceremonies do not lead to enlightenment. So what the hell are they doing there so many hours, chanting and drumming and moving their hands and dancing and creating mandalas from sand and so on and so on and so on. So again, from the outside we have kind of a prejudiced opinion, because we do not understand that the Tantric ritual is actually a whole, the Tantric ritual is a meditation which involves the three aspects which humans are expressing themselves in the world, which is body, speech, and mind. For example, in the older schools of Buddhism, such as Theravada, or in Chan Buddhism, or in other Mahayana schools, we simply sit in meditation. So we have a period of chanting something, but then we sit in meditation, and always the emphasis is on the mind. We are very easily discarding the words. So we mumbling some kind of taking refuge, we reminding ourselves the 5 precepts, a little bit of the qualities of the Buddha, and let's get to the business, sitting meditation, looking at the mind. But in the tantric understanding, we incorporate everything to a great whole. So there is movements of the hands, sometimes dancings, there is music with drums and bells and trumpets, and within all that there are periods of silence. So body, speech and mind are integrated together to a one whole. So if somebody look at tantric rituals as mere rituals, so this is not the correct understanding of Tantra. Because the tantric ritual is actually a meditation itself, from beginning to end. Whether it's while moving hands, or singing, or chanting, or visualizing, simulating, yes, and so on and so on. Now, another aspect that we see, for example, very evident in Tantric Buddhism, is mantras. Usually we have a lot of prejudice opinions about mantras. When somebody repeats about the same idea, we say he repeats this idea like a mantra. And then we see people who are mumbling in a low tone, all kinds of strange words. And they have this rosary, or they have this, this is really a special technology, the wheel. Yes, it's a different one, but it's much more exotic and beautiful than simple malas, I think. Even I like malas very much. And again, people do not really understand what is the meaning of mantra, why we chant mantras, and how mantras can lead us actually into enlightenment or awakening. So, as I mentioned before, one of the names of Tantric Buddhism is actually Mantrayana. So Mantrayana means the school of the protective words. And again, we're coming back now to another aspect of the discursive mind, which is words. Now, when we read about Buddhism, it's very happy for us to know that in some sutras or in some teachings, especially from the Zen style, we can discard and throw away words. This is very nice. We are all beyond words. I cannot express it because this is beyond words. I cannot say what it is because it's beyond words. This belongs already to the absolute. But the truth of reality that if we encounter...
To the absolute, not to the absent.
לא, התכוונתי ממש אחר. לא. Yes, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused. But anyway, the real thing is that in reality, it is all of us, when somebody tells us that we are beautiful, we immediately feel graciousness. In the next second, if somebody tells us that we are assholes, we are down in the pit hole. So this is example for the power of words and its associations. So the Tantric sages, because they know the power of the words, they say, okay, before we discard words, we use them in a beneficial way. What is the meaning of the word mantra? It's a protective word. Protective word. Now, because such a heavy emphasis of the discursive thought is actually made up of words, we are actually all the time, part of our daydreaming is telling ourselves stories. I've been here and there, I talked with this and that one, I want to do this or that or whatever. So the tantric sages say, okay, you have this aspect of your mind, let's again utilize it and use it for your own benefit, for your own enlightenment. So instead of simply chattering worthless words, destructive words, try to tell yourself positive words with enlightening qualities. So this is actually what mantras are. So basically, every time that we chant a sutra, this is basically chanting a mantra, because a sutra is words which telling us instructive, meditative instructions, which are protecting our mind from our own stupidity. So this is actually what mantra is, protecting my mind from my own stupidity. So if we look at mantras, we see that mantras signifying the good qualities of the Buddha, the good qualities of enlightenment, or else the name of the Buddha, or else praise of the Buddha, all to uplift our state of mind and emotion. So probably some of you know this very famous mantra like Om Mani Padme Hum, which is very, very popular and famous. So what it actually means? It is not really, I cannot say that the meaning is really, okay, instead of saying what I don't think, I will say what I know that it is the meaning. The meaning is something like, hail or praise to the jewel in the lotus. This is what it means. Now, what is the jewel? The jewel is our mind. Why it is a jewel? Because mind is a Buddha. What is lotus? Lotus is our body. So praise for the jewel in the lotus is actually praise to our mind within our body, which is essentially Buddha. So it's very simple. So we all the time reminding ourselves the qualities of the Buddha. Now, why mantras are repetitive? Because anyway our discursive thought is repetitive. Every time that my mind is randomly flowing, I'm telling myself the same stories all over again and again and again and again and again and again. So for each time that I think a useless, stupid or destructive thought, instead of it, I'm uttering a mantra, which is
better.
Much better than letting...
Beneficial, but then why do we use a language I don't understand? So
excuse
for
me?
The mantras, Om Mani Padme Hum, I don't understand that. So mantras should be my language.
Okay. So first of all, there is something true in what you're saying, because actually Chinese people use Chinese mantras, and Tibetan use Tibetan mantras, and people in Southeast Asia, they use the Pali or Sanskrit mantras. So actually what you are saying is at least partially is true. Why we are not saying it in our own language? So actually many of the Buddhist teachers, they say that we should translate the Buddhist teachings into the native language where it comes to. Because the idea of holy language in Buddhism is actually quite alien. So we cannot see that all Buddhists speak Pali or all Buddhists speak Sanskrit. In China, it's in Chinese. Again, Vietnam, Vietnamese, and so on. I'm not saying that they're not studying the original languages, because sometimes this is very important to understand at least the original meaning, because by translating, some of the meanings are...
Lost in translation.
Exactly, thank you. Yes. But the translators are trying to do their best to match the meaning of the original sentences to the native language which they translated to. But there is another thing. Another thing is that words and sounds being repeated so many times in a certain language, we can say that they
It's like they gain their own power.
something like that, yes. The rhythm, the flow. For example, if I try to say in Hebrew, הידד לתכשיט שבתוך הלוטוס, it will be much more
Complicated.
I don't know if it's complicated, but it will be סליחה? It will be much more difficult, yes, much more crude than simply sticking with the original mantra. But if I understand what the mantra says, so this is good enough. So some of the things the Buddhist teachers and masters, they very happy to translate, and other things they say that we are better with the things as they are right now, because we, in our own languages, we still don't have the fluidity and the harmony and the aesthetics that the original language has been formed. Yes, possible too. And for example, one of my teachers, he said that it is very good for us to have a rosary. Somebody has a rosary? No? Okay. And to say, it's not me, it's not I, it's not mine. It's not me, it's not I, it's not mine. Again and again and again, like mantra. So this method is already employed. Not maybe in a very traditional way, but still in a traditional way. It's not me, it's not I, it does not belong to me. One bead after another bead. What?
It doesn't have to be traditional. It's not. I don't think that the aim is to be traditional.
No, the aim is not to be traditional, but if traditional works better, so why not sticking with it? So now we understand also the importance of words. Now we're coming to another aspect. For example, one of the great ideas of Mahayana Buddhism is that emptiness is form and form is emptiness. Now, in our simple way of perception, it is really impossible, because if I would try to insert my head into the wall, it will not happen. I can simply knock again and again my head against the wall, but it will not יספג, it will not
It will not be absorbed.
Yes, it will not be absorbed, it will not be mixed. So actually our normal perception tells us that nothing really is empty. There is emptiness, which is, for example, the space of the room, and there is solid things, like the wall, like the objects around us, and so on. So how we manifest this understanding in our meditation? There are many ways to do that. For example, one way is the analytical meditations, like especially in Tantric Buddhism they like to do. So they, for example, the masters, they choose an object. It can be, for example, our body, and we start to deconstruct it by way of analysis. Or else we can gain the meditative experience of penetrating insight, so we actually can look into things in a completely different way than we are doing now. So we can actually see the things not only as objects but also as processes. Or else, when we practice the tantric methods of meditation, we simulate something, and then we dissolve it into the spacious awareness of our mind. For example, we simulate or imagine the Buddha, so this is form, and then we dissolve this image into the space of our mind. And of course this is not enough, because it has to come with a quite elaborate philosophy of the Madhyamaka school and together with the mind-only schools that telling us that reality is not exactly what we see and perceive on the immediate level, which is actually in a way true also physically, because, and somebody can correct me, but I have read somewhere when we try to observe phenomena on a quantum level, so the space between the particles within an atom is much greater than the space that the particle itself occupies. So actually what we perceive as a solid object is more spacious than solid, basically. And then there is this quantum understanding that electron, for instance, is both a wave of energy and an object which travels in space. So this is actually what the Yogacharin and the Madhyamika sages already telling us, that all phenomena are basically empty and spacious, but we cannot say that they are non-existent, because we can still perceive. We still perceive. I cannot deny that I have, or as Thor says, there is a body. I cannot deny it. I cannot deny the fact that now I'm talking to phenomena who temporarily call themselves human beings, or that everything is absent, or everything is non-existent. I cannot deny that. So this is the way that reality is both form and both form and emptiness. I'm not sure that this concept is very well explained, and I'm not sure that I have all the time to try to establish it further than I do now. But let's say that this is the glimpse of it. Okay, so this is only a small touch. If you want to really know further, so you are invited, of course, to go and ask the tantric teachers themselves. Fortunately, they are quite abundant in our country lately, in the last 10 years. So they come in, there is Amutati Dharma, which brings them quite very often. And there is a Bodhicitta group, which brings Chantrul Rinpoche. And there is our group, which brings Chokinima Rinpoche and Tsokli Rinpoche, which are great teachers. And they come in at least once every 2 or 3 years, so there is a possible to study with them, to learn from them, and to ask them, of course, questions.